All right, so you want to talk about hail insurance. More specifically, those sometimes tricky deductibles.
And how a broker can make picking the right coverage a lot easier.
Exactly. And lucky for us, some of you sent in some materials from Guild Insurance Group.
Ah, great choice.
So we're going to use that as our guide today. But even before we dig into those deductibles,
Yeah.
let's start with the big question. Why is hail insurance even a thing in Manitoba?
Well, I think Guild says it best. Hail is unpredictable,
Oh, absolutely.
and it can be costly.
Incredibly. And, I mean, you put so much time and effort into your operation,
Right.
and suddenly
Boom.
a hailstorm comes and wipes out a huge chunk of your yield.
It's like all your work just goes poof.
And that's exactly where good hail insurance comes in.
It's your safety net. It lets you get back on your feet.
And that's where, working with a broker like us can really make a difference.
For sure.
Because, as Gil points out, independent agents,
Like us.
yeah, exactly.
Oh.
We have access to multiple insurance companies, not just one.
Not just the first option that comes up.
Exactly. So we can really shop around, find the best coverage.
The best fit for your operation.
And that's super crucial when it comes to hail insurance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially with all the different deductible options out there.
Right.
It's not one size fits all, so we can tailor the coverage to your specific needs.
To your risk tolerance.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings us to our next point, deductibles.
Yeah.
Now, I know they can seem confusing at first, but stick with us.
We'll break it all down.
Because Guild actually gave this great real-life example
Oh, yeah.
where choosing a certain deductible actually resulted in lower premiums
And better coverage.
and better coverage. So let's unpack some of these deductible types
Sounds good.
so you have a good understanding of how they work. So first up, we have the full coverage option,
Pretty straightforward. You're covered for the actual amount of your loss.
minus a certain threshold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have options like full coverage 10.
Right, where you have full coverage, but only after a 10% loss.
Yeah. And then things get a bit more interesting with IP, D, and S deductibles.
Okay, hold on. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, can we just back up a little
Sure.
and clarify what IP even stands for?
Oh, good point. IP stands for increasing percentage.
Increasing percentage, okay.
And these can be very advantageous, I would say, in certain situations.
Okay,
Let's take an example. You choose a 10 IP deductible on your canola.
okay.
So that means you are responsible for the first 10% of any loss.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I had, let's say, a 20% loss,
Yeah,
I would cover that first 10%, and then the insurance would kick in for the remaining 10%.
you got it. But here's where it gets kind of interesting. As the percentage of that loss increases, your payout also increases.
Oh, yeah.
So say a hailstorm hits and you have an 80% loss.
Oh, wow.
With the 10 IP, you'd actually be getting more coverage per acre compared to the full coverage option,
Really?
even though you paid a lower premium.
So wait, so I could potentially pay less up front,
Mhm.
but if I have a really big loss, I could get more coverage. That seems counterintuitive.
I know, right? It can be a bit confusing at first, but that's the beauty of these different options. You can customize it based on, how much risk you're willing to take.
Your financial goals.
Exactly.
I mean, this is why having a broker who understands all of this,
Absolutely.
it's so important.
It's not about pushing one type of deductible over another. It's about understanding what you need and, recommending the best options.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
We analyze your historical data, look at your crop types, consider your risk tolerance,
To come up with a plan that, works for you
gives you the protection you need.
without breaking the bank.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about the why of hail insurance,
Mhm.
and we've scratched the surface of deductibles,
Yeah.
but there's still more to unpack. So let's move on to those D&S deductible options next
Let's do it.
and see how they fit into the whole picture.
Sounds good. All right. Welcome back to our deep dive on hail insurance.
So last time we started talking about those D&S deductibles.
Yeah, those are where things can get, really strategic.
Okay, so let's start with D. That stands for disappearing deductible, right?
Exactly. And with a disappearing deductible, a portion of it actually fades away as the loss increases.
So it's kind of like a sliding scale of coverage.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so walk me through this. Let's say I have a 10D deductible.
All right. So with a 10D, you would be responsible for the first 10% of any loss.
Okay.
But between 30% and 40% loss, that 10% deductible gradually disappears.
So it starts going away.
Yeah, you start getting more of that deductible back,
Okay.
which ends up boosting your overall payout.
So if my loss is, let's say, right in the middle, 35%,
Yeah,
I would only be responsible for a portion of that 10%.
exactly. And once that loss goes above 40%,
Mm-hmm.
you're back to full coverage for that actual amount of damage.
Just like with the full coverage we talked about before.
Exactly. So it's kind of like a hybrid between a standard deductible and full coverage.
Okay.
Offers that balance,
Of protection and potential savings.
Exactly. And it's a really good option, I think, for farmers who, maybe want that extra layer of coverage for those moderate losses, but they
Right.
don't want to necessarily pay the full premium for full coverage.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about the S deductible.
Okay.
This stands for
Straight percentage.
straight percentage.
And it's the simplest one.
Right.
You always pay a fixed percentage of the loss.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how big or small.
So if I choose, let's say, a 10S deductible,
Yeah.
I am always responsible for that first 10%,
Always.
regardless of whether it's a 20% loss or an 80% loss.
That's right. So the insurance will always just cover that remaining percentage.
So in my example, let's say 50% loss.
Yep.
I'd cover that first 10. Insurance would pay for the other 40.
That's how it works.
Okay, so pretty straightforward.
Yep. Simple way to kind of manage risk.
Potentially lower premiums.
Exactly.
And again, this is where having a broker who can
Oh, yeah.
explain all these nuances and
So important.
really break it all down.
Yeah, because it's not about just pushing one type over the other.
Right.
It's about understanding, like we've talked about before,
Mm-hmm.
what your needs are, analyzing that risk tolerance,
Right.
and recommending what works best for you.
Because that's what we do.
That's what we're here for.
We're not just order takers.
Yeah.
We want to really be partners
Yeah.
in helping you manage this risk.
Absolutely. And, another benefit of working with a broker is, like we mentioned before,
Yeah.
we have access to all these different insurance companies.
Right. Not just one.
Not just one. So we can actually shop around.
We do the comparing for you.
Yeah. Compare quote.
Find the best possible deal.
So you can focus on running your farm.
Exactly. Speaking of making things easier, I know Guild really stresses that purchasing your insurance early in the season.
That is key.
Why is that so important?
Well, for one thing, you're usually going to get better rates.
Oh, really?
Yeah, insurance companies, they tend to offer more competitive premiums earlier in the season.
Okay.
Before the risk of hailstorms really ramps up.
So if I wait till the last minute
You could end up paying more.
for the same coverage.
Exactly. And even more important than that, purchasing early, make sure that you're covered from the very beginning
Oh, right, from the start.
of the season. You don't want to be caught by surprise
Right.
by an unexpected hailstorm, before your coverage kicks in.
Yeah, that would be the worst.
The worst. It's all about that peace of mind.
Knowing you're protected.
Yeah.
No matter what happens.
Exactly. You can sleep soundly knowing that those crops are protected.
And focus on what you do best.
Yeah.
Growing amazing crops.
Absolutely.
So I think as we're wrapping up this part of our discussion,
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something we've touched on a few times. That importance of working with a knowledgeable broker.
It's key.
Because it's not just about, finding the cheapest policy. It's about understanding all the ins and outs of the coverage.
The fine print.
Being able to, guide you to the right decision.
Welcome back to our deep dive on hail insurance. I feel like we've covered so much already.
I know, right? We've talked about those unpredictable hailstorms in Manitoba
Tricky deductibles.
and how a broker can really help you make sense of it all.
Meet the right choices for your farm.
Exactly.
One thing that Guild talks about that I think is really interesting is this idea of risk tolerance.
Yeah.
So what does that even mean for a farmer when they're, thinking about their hail insurance?
That's a great question. Basically, it's how comfortable you are, with the possibility of losing money.
Okay.
And it's different for everybody.
Right.
It depends on your financial situation, your experience, maybe even your personality.
Like some people are just, more okay with taking a gamble. Exactly. So someone with a higher risk tolerance, they might be fine with a bigger deductible,
Okay.
knowing they could pay more out of pocket if there's a smaller hail event.
Yeah.
But they might save money on their premium.
Right.
And then on the other hand, someone with a lower risk tolerance, they might want a smaller deductible, maybe even full coverage,
Yeah.
just knowing they'll have, less to worry about financially if the worst happens.
So how does a broker help a farmer figure out, what their risk tolerance is and then how to translate that into a policy?
Well, we ask a lot of questions. We want to understand your whole operation,
Yeah.
your financial goals, how you feel about risk.
Really get the full picture.
Yeah. We'll talk about past experiences with hail, what crops you're growing, your overall financial plan, really get a holistic view.
So it's not just about picking a deductible and signing a piece of paper.
No, it's a conversation.
It's a process.
It is. It's about understanding all those options, making sure the policy really fits you.
Aligns with your risk.
Exactly. And that's where our expertise comes in, right? We can break it down, explain the pros and cons, show you different scenarios,
Yeah.
and help you choose what gives you the best protection and peace of mind.
And don't forget, we're independent brokers,
That's key.
which means we're not tied to any one company.
We have access to policies from multiple providers.
We can find you the best rates.
Give you more choices.
So, if anyone's listening and thinking, okay, this hail insurance stuff is confusing,
Yeah.
what's the first step?
Just call a broker.
Yeah, we're here to help.
We'll walk you through it, answer your questions, and make sure you have the right policy.
No unnecessary stress.
Exactly.
I think that's a really good takeaway.
Yeah.
Hail insurance, it's not something you want to put off till the last minute.
Be proactive.
Get that coverage in place early.
Know that you're protected when those storms roll in.
Absolutely. So we really hope this deep dive has helped clear up some of the confusion around hail insurance,
Especially those deductibles.
giving you a better understanding of your options.
Because knowledge is power when it comes to, managing risk.
Now, with a good broker by your side, you can navigate this whole thing with confidence,
And peace of mind.
knowing that your farm is protected.